Welcome to the road to 1 million US dollars, and let's get right into the Bitcoin chart for today, starting on this 1 hour time frame for Bitcoin, because yesterday we were talking about this falling wedge pattern potentially breaking out to the upside and setting up this price target at about 121k. However, notice that since breaking out here, we have basically just seen some choppy sideways price action. And although this isn't very surprising in a weekend, especially with such low volume here, however, there is another potentially bullish signal here in the form of this ascending triangle pattern, which has a confirmed point of the breakout at 117.9k. Now, in the case that we end up getting 1 hour candle closes above this point of the breakout, that would set up a price target at 119k. However, once again, guys, as always, you need to keep an eye on this volume to see if we are indeed getting all the signals to actually confirm a breakout. In the case that you don't know, to confirm a bullish breakout, guys, you need to see candle closes outside of the pattern. Potentially, you could also look for some kind of breakout, retest, or resumption type structure. That is the second thing to look out for, although this isn't always guaranteed. And lastly, we need to see increasing volume on the breakout. So those are the three confirmation signals to confirm this breakout right here. But of course, this was also the same with this breakout yesterday. Now, if all of this information I just shared is news to you, I highly recommend you check out my free trading course, because here I teach you all the basics about technical analysis that I've been using in this video to analyze the chart. And I also teach you the basics of crypto leverage trading, if that is something you're interested in. So go ahead and check this out on rt1m.com, which is my website. I will also link this in the video description, but you can also just type rt1m.com and you will get to this page to start checking out the course. Either way, let's get back to this Bitcoin analysis then. So notice how right here we do still have this confirmed bullish divergence in the charts, which is when you have lower lows in the Bitcoin price and higher lows in the RSI momentum indicator. Typically, this points towards us getting a break from all of this bearish price action we saw here recently, either in the form of some choppy sideways price action or potentially some bullish momentum. So far, we have basically just seen choppy sideways price action. The most bearish thing that could possibly happen right now is if we end up breaking down below this 117.3k level, because that would completely invalidate this potentially bullish setup here and actually get rid of this past pattern from this falling wedge as well, although this one is already looking pretty sketchy with us basically trading sideways on what is supposed to be a normal breakout. So let's just move on to this 4 hour time frame for Bitcoin then, because notice how right here we actually have a confirmed bearish divergence in the charts. So higher highs in the price, lower highs in the RSI momentum indicator, pointing towards either some choppy sideways price action or potentially some bearish momentum. Of course, I already called this out a couple of days ago. So far, we've seen mostly bearish price action. Keep an eye on this area of resistance here on the 4 hour time frame, as well as the daily time frame from 119k up to 120,000, with support to the downside sitting from 116.5 all the way down to 115.5k. Another level to keep an eye on, which I've already mentioned a couple times on the channel here, is this Fibonacci golden pocket, because this is sitting at around 117.2 down to 116.8k. And so far, we have seen a clean bounce exactly from this Fibonacci golden pocket. Now, if we start breaking down below this, typically that is not a good sign. We could still look for some support on this daily time frame in this big level of support that I just mentioned. However, notice how if we start breaking down below that, there is quite a big gap until we find big support once again. That would already be at 112k in the Bitcoin price, right? So this is actually a critical time for Bitcoin to actually start finding some support and potentially bouncing off of here once again, because breaking down below that 115.5k level is no good for Bitcoin. Now let's move on to the Bitcoin liquidation heat map. I actually want to show you guys the 2-week time frame here. Notice how there is still a bunch of liquidity to the downside. However, most of the liquidity is actually sitting at 115.4k, just below that big level of support. So if we were to see some kind of wick just below that level of support, guys, in order to take out all of this liquidity here, that doesn't necessarily have to be a huge warning signal for Bitcoin if we see this next week somewhere, for example. However, if we start actually breaking down with candle closes, then typically that is not a good look. The next big pockets of liquidity are already sitting around that 112K level that I just mentioned. And in the case that you don't know, typically the Bitcoin price gets attracted to where there is the most liquidity on this chart. Right now, we do have some liquidity around 120, but most of the liquidity sitting at 115K. So overall, we should definitely be cautious on this 1-day time frame in terms of this overall trend, especially with us now having broken this ascending trend line in the Bitcoin price. Lastly, let's take a quick look at the Bitcoin ETF flow tables. Yesterday, we saw an absolutely tiny outflow of about $14 million, relatively small in comparison to everything we have seen over the past couple of weeks. Therefore, these Bitcoin ETFs are having little to no effect on the Bitcoin price at the moment. And of course, throughout this weekend as well, we have no Bitcoin ETF inflows or outflows because they don't trade on weekends. So I'm going to be checking back in with this table specifically next week again. Although, of course, before then, guys, I'm obviously going to make another video tomorrow. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel with notifications on so you do not miss any of these important updates. And lastly, don't forget to check out my free trading course on rt1m.com if you want to learn the basics of technical analysis, as well as a little bit about how to leverage trade crypto. But either way, if you do end up checking it out or not, thank you for watching once again, and I will see you tomorrow in the next one.